My name is Alondra, and at 34 years old, I never imagined my family would still treat me like an unwanted guest. Despite my position in the U.S. government, they acted like I didn't exist at my brother's graduation. That day was supposed to be about family, but instead it became about secrets and revelations when my Secret Service detail appeared. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, this story might resonate with you. Let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of survivors and thrivers. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut, where my father was a local politician with big dreams, and my mother taught literature at the community college. From my earliest memories, it was clear that my younger brother Jackson was the golden child. 3 years younger than me, he was the son my father always wanted, the athlete who would carry on the family name and legacy. Our house was filled with Jackson's trophies, certificates, and photos. His accomplishments, no matter how small, were celebrated with dinners and parties. Meanwhile, my academic achievements collected dust in my bedroom drawer, rarely acknowledged and never displayed. Jackson scored the winning touchdown. My father would announce proudly at dinner, his eyes gleaming with pride. Everyone at City Hall was talking about it. My mother would beam, reaching across to squeeze Jackson's hand. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." I would sit there waiting for someone to mention that I had received the highest score on the state math competition that same week. The acknowledgement never came. After a while, I stopped expecting it. When I was 12, I won the national speech competition with an essay about equality and justice. The competition was held 2 states away, and I had worked on my speech for months. My parents promised they would come, but 2 days before the event, Jackson had a regional football game. "You understand, don't you, Alondra?" my mother said, not really asking. "This is a big game for your brother. The scouts will be there." I traveled to the competition alone, with my teacher, Mrs. Patterson, chaperoning. When I stood on that stage accepting my gold medal, I scanned the audience still, hoping to see my parents' faces. The seats reserved for my family remained empty. That night I called home excited to share my victory. "That's nice, honey," my father said distractedly. "Jackson scored 2 touchdowns today. The coach thinks he might be varsity material as a freshman next year." I learned to stop sharing my achievements. I learned to stop seeking their approval. Most importantly, I learned to create my own path forward. School became my sanctuary. I poured myself into academics, student government, and debate club. The teachers recognized what my parents couldn't see, that I had a sharp mind and natural leadership abilities. While my parents attended every one of Jackson's games, I built a support system of teachers and mentors who believed in me. In sophomore year, I met Diana Martinez in debate club. She was brilliant, compassionate, and fiercely loyal. She became the sister I never had, the person who celebrated my victories and comforted me through disappointments. "Your parents are idiots," Diana would say bluntly after witnessing yet another slight at my expense. "One day they'll realize what they missed and it'll be too late." I skipped my junior year and graduated high school at 16, a year ahead of schedule. When Harvard Law School offered me a full scholarship, my parents' reaction was predictable. "That's very far away," my mother noted with a frown. "Who will help me with the household chores?" "Law school is expensive," my father added, not acknowledging the scholarship. "Are you sure this is practical?" That same week, they spent $5,000 on a specialized training camp for Jackson. The day I left for college, my mother hugged me briefly at the door. My father gave me an awkward pat on the shoulder. Jackson was at football practice, a priority that couldn't be missed. I took a taxi to the airport alone, my life packed into 2 suitcases and a backpack. As the plane lifted off, I made a promise to myself. I would build a life so extraordinary that even they couldn't ignore it. Not for their approval, I had given up on that, but for myself. Because despite everything, I still believed I was worth something. I still believed I deserved to be seen. Little did I know then how dramatically that promise would fulfill itself, or how the family that never made room for me would one day scramble to claim connection to my success. Harvard Law School was transformative. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued intellect and ambition. I thrived in the competitive environment, graduating summa cum laude at the top of my class. On graduation day, I scanned the audience out of habit, knowing my family wouldn't be there. Instead, Diana had flown in to cheer me on, holding a handmade sign and screaming my name when I crossed the stage. My parents sent a congratulatory email. Good job on finishing school. Jackson just got recruited by State University with a full athletics scholarship. After graduation, I accepted a position at Hartman & Klein, one of Washington, D.C.'s most prestigious law firms. The work was demanding, the hours brutal, but I excelled. I specialized in constitutional law and national security issues, quickly developing a reputation as someone who could handle complex, sensitive cases. 3 years into my career came the moment that changed everything. I was representing a technology company in a case with significant national security implications. Senator Elizabeth Morgan, chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, was present for my oral arguments. I didn't know it then, but she watched me with growing interest as I navigated the complex legal terrain with precision and confidence. A week later, I received a call from the senator's office. Miss Alondra Harris, this is Senator Morgan. I was impressed by your performance last week. I'd like to discuss a potential position on my legal team. Within a month, I left my lucrative private practice to join Senator Morgan's staff as legal counsel. The pay was significantly less, but the work was meaningful and impactful. I advised on legislation related to national security, cybersecurity, and international relations. My rise through government ranks was meteoric. From the senator's legal counsel, I became her chief of staff. When President Harris, no relation, won the election 2 years later, Senator Morgan recommended me for a position in the White House. At 28, I became the youngest Deputy National Security Advisor in American history. By 32, I was appointed National Security Advisor, the youngest person, and only the third woman to hold the position. With the appointment came a security detail from the Secret Service, a team led by Marcus Johnson, a stoic professional agent with kind eyes that contrasted with his serious demeanor. Miss Harris, I'm Agent Johnson. He introduced himself on our first meeting. My team and I will be responsible for your security from now on. This position makes you a high-value target, I'm afraid. Throughout these professional milestones, my family remained distant. They never visited me in Washington. Our communication consisted mainly of occasional phone calls on holidays and birthdays. As my profile rose, however, their attitude subtly shifted. Your cousin Tanya is applying to colleges, my mother mentioned during one call. I told her you might be able to put in a good word at Georgetown. The local paper wants to do a feature on you, my father said another time. I told them I could provide some childhood photos. The mayor thinks it would be good publicity for the town. They began dropping my name at local events, proudly telling neighbors and friends about my daughter who works for the government. Yet they never asked about my actual work, my challenges, or my life in Washington. I remained an abstract concept to them, useful for bragging rights, but not someone to know or understand. Despite the emotional distance, I continued sending birthday gifts, holiday cards, and financial support when needed. I paid off my parents' mortgage when my father had health issues and couldn't work for 6 months. I helped fund Jackson's wedding to his college girlfriend Stephanie. I did these things not from obligation, but from a stubborn hope that generosity might bridge the gap my achievements could not. Diana now, a successful clinical psychologist, warned me against this pattern. "They're using you, Alondra," she said during one of our weekly video calls. "You can't buy their love or attention." "I know," I admitted, "but they're still my family." Marcus, who inevitably overheard many of my personal conversations due to his protective duties, once offered a rare personal comment after a difficult call with my mother. "Family is complicated," he said simply, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes the families we choose are more reliable than the ones we're born into." His words stayed with me, a reminder that I had built a life filled with people who valued me, colleagues, friends, mentors, people who saw me clearly and appreciated what they saw. Perhaps that should be enough. Then came the email that would force me to confront my family dynamics head-on. An invitation to Jackson's college graduation, 6 years delayed due to his multiple changes of major and academic probation. The message from my mother was brief and to the point. "Jackson is finally graduating next month. As this is an important family occasion, we expect you to attend." The email from my mother sat in my inbox for 3 days before I could bring myself to respond. The wording was so typical. Not "we would love for you to come," or "it would mean a lot to have you there, but we expect you to attend," as though my presence was a duty, not a desired celebration of my brother's achievement. I forwarded the email to Diana during our weekly therapy session conducted over secure video due to my position. "Classic Sandra Harris manipulation," Diana said, shaking her head after reading it. "But Alondra, maybe this is an opportunity." "For what more disappointment?" I asked, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. "For healing, maybe. Or at least for closure. You've accomplished so much, become this incredible force in the world. Maybe it's time to go back, not as the seeking child, but as the woman who no longer needs their approval." I considered her words carefully. Diana had been my rock for nearly 20 years now. Her insights had guided me through countless personal and professional challenges. "What if nothing has changed?" I asked. "What if they still see me as an afterthought?" "Then you'll know," she said simply, "and knowing is better than wondering." The next day, I discussed the situation with Marcus during our morning security briefing. Over the past 2 years, he had become more than just my security detail. He was a constant presence, a steadying force in my chaotic life. "If you decide to attend, my team will need to coordinate with local law enforcement," he said, ever professional. "A small-town event like this poses unique security challenges." "It's going to be awkward enough without a security detail," I sighed. "My family barely acknowledges me as it is. Add Secret Service agents, and they'll be even more distant." Marcus's expression remained neutral, but his eyes softened slightly. "With respect, ma'am, that's not really an option. Your position requires protection, especially in public settings." Later that afternoon, my chief of staff, Eliza, noticed my distraction during a briefing. "Everything okay?" she asked after the room had cleared. I explained the situation, expecting her to remind me of my packed schedule and upcoming international summit. Instead, she surprised me. "Take the time, Alondra. Family is complicated, but it's still family. We can reschedule the preliminary meetings, and the president isn't expecting the China briefing until next week." "Are you sure?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "National security will survive without you for 3 days," she smiled. "Besides, you haven't taken personal time in over a year. Even the National Security Advisor is entitled to see her brother graduate." That evening, I called my mother to confirm my attendance. Her response was lukewarm at best. "Oh good, I'll tell your father you're coming. Will you be staying at the house? We've converted your old room to a home gym, but the sofa in the den pulls out." I'll book a hotel, I replied, trying to ignore the sting of knowing my childhood bedroom had been erased while Jackson's remained preserved like a shrine. And I should mention that my security detail will need to accompany me. Security detail, my mother's voice rose an octave. Is that really necessary? It's just a small-town graduation, Alondra. It's protocol, Mom. I don't have a choice in the matter. Well, she huffed, try to keep it low-key. This is Jackson's day, after all. We don't want any distractions. After hanging up, I sat in my office looking out over the Washington Monument illuminated against the night sky. My life had become so different from anything my family could comprehend. Perhaps that was part of the problem. We now inhabited entirely different worlds. The week before the graduation, I purchased an expensive laptop as a gift for Jackson. Top of the line, perfect for the entry-level marketing position he had secured. I arranged for time off, briefed my deputy on ongoing situations, and prepared my security team for the trip to Connecticut. We'll keep the detail minimal, Marcus assured me. 2 agents besides myself. Will be present, but discreet. As Air Force Two touched down at the small regional airport near my hometown, a security requirement rather than a personal preference, I felt a familiar knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. I was returning not as the overlooked daughter seeking validation, but as one of the most powerful women in American government. Yet deep inside, part of me was still that little girl, hoping that this time, finally, my family might see me. The rental house my security team had arranged was a 15-minute drive from my parents' home, close enough for convenience, but far enough to provide some emotional breathing room. After settling in and changing into casual clothes, I took a deep breath and texted my mother that I would be arriving soon. "We're home," came the curt reply. "No looking forward to seeing you or drive safely." Marcus drove me to the familiar 2-story colonial where I'd grown up. It looked smaller somehow. The blue paint faded the garden, less impressive than in my memories. As we pulled into the driveway, I noticed my father peeking through the curtains. "I'll wait in the car, ma'am, Marcus," said his eyes scanning the surroundings out of professional habit. "Thanks, Marcus," I replied, smoothing my simple blouse and jeans, an outfit carefully chosen to be understated. I shouldn't be too long. My father opened the door before I could knock his expression, a mixture of awkwardness and forced joviality. "Alondra, you made it." He gave me a stiff hug, patting my back twice before quickly releasing me. "Hi, Dad," I said, stepping into the foyer that smelled exactly as I remembered. A combination of my mother's lavender candles and the lemon polish she used on the furniture. "Sandra Jackson. She's here," my father called out, leading me into the living room where framed photographs of Jackson's athletic career still dominated the walls. I noticed a small frame on a side table, my Harvard Law graduation photo, the only visual evidence that I existed in this family's narrative. My mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Alondra, good to see you." Her hug was equally brief. "You look thin. Are they not feeding you in Washington?" Before I could respond, Jackson appeared with his fiancée, Stephanie. My brother had filled out since I'd last seen him, his college athlete physique softening around the edges. Stephanie was pretty, in a conventional way. Her blonde hair perfectly styled her smile, not quite reaching her eyes as she assessed me. "Hey, sis," Jackson said, not making eye contact. "Thanks for coming." "Congratulations on graduating," I said warmly, genuinely happy for him, despite everything. "I'm really proud of you." He shrugged, still not meeting my gaze. "Yeah, well, better late than never, right?" "So you're like important in the government?" Stephanie asked, her tone, making it clear she was skeptical. "Alondra advises the president on national security matters," my father interjected, suddenly proud when an outside audience was present. That sounds so intense, Stephanie said, exchanging a look with Jackson. Do you have to carry a gun? No, but she apparently needs bodyguards, my mother said with a tight smile. Speaking of which, is that man going to sit in our driveway the whole time you're here? His name is Marcus, and yes, that's his job, I explained. There will be a small security detail with me throughout the visit. It's standard protocol. My father frowned. At the graduation, too. Won't that be a bit much? It's not optional, Dad. An uncomfortable silence followed, broken when I remembered the gift I'd brought. I retrieved the wrapped laptop from my bag. I got you something, I said, handing it to Jackson. For your new job. He took it with obvious reluctance, unwrapping it without enthusiasm. A laptop. Thanks. He set it aside without opening the box, not even checking the model. It's the new MacBook Pro, I explained. I thought it would be helpful for your marketing work. Was his only response. Dinner that night was a stilted affair, filled with superficial questions about Washington that I could tell no one really wanted answers to. When I tried to ask about Jackson's job prospects or my parents' lives, the responses were minimal, quickly redirecting to requests for political gossip I couldn't ethically share. So do you know state secrets and stuff? Stephanie asked, giggling. Some aspects of my work are classified, I acknowledged. Classified, Jackson repeated with a slight eye roll. Sounds convenient. My mother served dessert. Jackson's favorite apple pie, never mine. And the conversation shifted to graduation logistics. We have 4 seats in the family section, my father explained. Front row right near the stage. Your mother and I will be there along with Stephanie and her mother. I nodded, understanding the implication before it was stated. Jackson cleared his throat. You'll need to sit in the back, Alondra. I looked up from my untouched pie, meeting his eyes directly for the first time since my arrival. The back? Yeah, he continued, his tone defensive. Those front seats are for immediate family. The words hit like a physical blow. Immediate family. After all these years, I was still the outsider. I understand, I said quietly, working to keep my expression neutral. It's not personal, my mother added, though it clearly was. It's just that those seats are reserved for close family, and with Stephanie's mother coming all the way from Florida. And honestly, Stephanie interjected, having security people there would just distract from Jackson's moment. People would be looking at you instead of him. We wouldn't want that, Jackson agreed, exchanging a look with his fiancée. I set down my fork, my appetite completely gone. Of course not. I'll sit wherever you prefer. Later, as Marcus drove me back to the rental house, I finally allowed the tears to fall. Tough evening, he asked, his eyes meeting mine briefly in the rearview mirror. They're ashamed of me, I said, the realization crystallizing. All these years I thought they just didn't see me. But it's worse than that. They see me and they wish they didn't. Marcus was silent for a long moment. With respect, ma'am, people who respond that way to someone's success, that says more about them than it does about you. I wiped my eyes, grateful for his quiet support. Thank you, Marcus. And please, when we're not in official settings, you can call me Alondra. Yes, ma'am, he replied with the ghost of a smile. Force of habit. That night, I called Diana, pouring out the painful details of the evening. Come home, she urged. These people don't deserve you. I can't, I said. I need to see this through. Then I'm coming there, she decided. I'll be on the first flight tomorrow. You shouldn't have to face this alone. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about family. Not the one connected by blood, but the one I had built through love, respect, and mutual support. Diana, my chosen sister. Marcus and my team, who protected me not just physically but often emotionally. my colleagues in Washington who valued my mind and my contributions. Perhaps the graduation wouldn't go as I hoped, but I was no longer a child desperate for approval. I was Alondra Harris, National Security Advisor to the President of the United States. And for the first time, I truly understood that this identity was enough, more than enough, regardless of what happened tomorrow. I woke before dawn on graduation day, anxiety making sleep impossible. After a quick run to clear my head, accompanied by a discreet agent maintaining perimeter security, I returned to shower and prepare for the day. I chose my outfit carefully, a professional but understated navy blue dress, pearl earrings, and low heels. I wanted to be respectful of the occasion without drawing attention. At 7:30, Marcus and the security team arrived. They were dressed in business casual attire, dark slacks and light button-downs that allowed them to blend in while concealing their weapons and communication devices. "Good morning, Alondra." Marcus greeted me, having taken my request for informality to heart when we were in private. "The venue has been secured and local police have been briefed. We should arrive 45 minutes before the ceremony to conduct a final sweep." I nodded, appreciating his thoroughness. "I need to stop by my parents' house first. They're expecting me for pre-graduation photos." When we arrived at the family home, however, the driveway was empty. I checked my phone, no messages. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. Finally, I called my mother. "Oh, Alondra," she answered background noise, suggesting they were already in the car. "We had to leave early to get good parking. Jackson needed to be there an hour before for graduate lineup, and we wanted to get settled." "I thought we were taking family photos before the ceremony," I said, recalling the clear plan discussed the previous evening. "Well, yes, but then we realized we were running late. We'll take photos after. You can meet us there." The call disconnected before I could respond. I stood on the porch of my childhood home, locked out both literally and figuratively. "Change of plans," I told Marcus, trying to hide my hurt. "They've already left for the ceremony." His expression remained professional, but I caught a flicker of disapproval in his eyes. "We'll head there directly then." The small university campus was crowded with proud families when we arrived. Marcus and the agents formed a loose perimeter around me as we navigated toward the outdoor amphitheater where the ceremony would take place. Despite their efforts to be discreet, I noticed people glancing our way, whispering to each other. I spotted my family near the front, arranging themselves in the reserved seating area. My mother saw me approaching and quickly moved to intercept, her smile tight and performative. "Alondra, there you are," she said, voice hushed. "The seating is very strict here. Your seat is toward the back section, G. I made sure it has a decent view of the stage." I glanced past her to where my father was chatting animatedly with an older blonde woman I presumed was Stephanie's mother. They were saving seats with programs, ensuring no one else could join their row. "Section G," I repeated flatly. "And where should my security detail sit?" My mother's smile faltered. "Do they really need to be right with you? It's causing quite a stir, and today is supposed to be about Jackson." "They need to maintain protective proximity," I explained, keeping my tone neutral despite the growing knot in my stomach. "It's not negotiable." She sighed dramatically. "Fine, but please ask them to be discreet. People are starting to whisper, and it's very distracting." "They're trained federal agents, Mom, not paparazzi. They know how to be discreet." As I turned to go, my mother caught my arm. "Your father and I were thinking, maybe you could remove those earpieces, or whatever those things are. They make you look so official." I stared at her, finally understanding. It wasn't just that they didn't want me in the family section. They wanted to pretend I was just a normal sister, not someone whose position warranted protection. "They're communication devices, and they're necessary," I said firmly. I'll see you after the ceremony. I made my way to Section G. Marcus beside me, and the other agents positioned strategically nearby. My assigned seat was indeed in the back, with a partially obstructed view of the stage. Around me, other attendees kept sneaking glances, clearly curious about why one person merited security in this otherwise ordinary setting. From my position, I could see my family clearly, laughing together, taking selfies, acting like the perfect, complete unit they believed themselves to be. The blonde woman, Stephanie's mother, was now showing something on her phone to my parents, who nodded with exaggerated interest. "Are you all right?" Marcus asked quietly, noticing my fixed gaze. "I'm fine," I lied, then corrected myself. "Actually, no, I'm not fine, but I will be." As graduates began filing into their seats, I noticed people in neighboring rows pointing in my direction, phones discreetly aimed to take photos. A middle-aged woman leaned toward me from the row in front. "Excuse me, but aren't you the National Security Advisor?" she asked hesitantly. Before I could respond, Marcus intervened smoothly. "Ma'am, we appreciate your discretion during this family event." The woman nodded quickly, turning back around, but immediately whispering to her husband. I could feel the ripple effect as awareness of my presence spread through the audience. On stage, university officials were arranging themselves, checking microphones, and making final preparations. The university president, a distinguished woman in academic regalia, was consulting with an aide who kept glancing in my direction. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. "Just landed. Coming straight to the ceremony. Hold tight. Love you." A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. Family, real family, was on the way. As the ceremony began with the traditional pomp and circumstance march, I watched Jackson process in with his classmates. Despite everything, pride welled up in me. Whatever our differences, he had persevered and completed his degree. That was an achievement worth celebrating. The university president took the podium, welcomed everyone, and began her opening remarks. From where I sat, I could see my parents beaming with pride cameras, ready to capture every moment of Jackson's recognition. To them, I realized I had always been invisible. But as the whispers around me grew and more people began to recognize my presence, I understood that to the rest of the world I was impossible to ignore. The ceremony progressed with the expected speeches about bright futures and the value of education. I listened politely, occasionally checking my phone for updates from Diana, who was fighting traffic from the airport. As the university president returned to the podium to begin conferring degrees, I settled in for the long alphabetical reading of names. Suddenly, the president paused, looking down at a note that had been passed to her. She adjusted her glasses, reading it carefully, before looking up and scanning the audience. Her eyes settled on my section, and I felt a wave of apprehension. "Before we begin recognizing our graduates," she said into the microphone, "I've just been informed that we have a distinguished guest with us today." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In the family section, I could see my mother straightening up, looking confused. Jackson, seated with the other graduates, was frowning. "It's not often that a small university like ours hosts a member of the president's cabinet," the president continued. "But today, we are honored to have with us the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States, who is here to support a family member among our graduates." All heads turned toward my section. Marcus shifted slightly, moving into a more protective stance as hundreds of eyes focused in our direction. "Miss Alondra Harris," the president announced, "formally, would you please stand so we can acknowledge your presence?" For a moment, I froze. This was exactly what my family had feared, attention directed away from Jackson and toward me. I considered remaining seated, trying to deflect the recognition. But something in me, Perhaps the little girl who had waited in vain for acknowledgement of her accomplishments rose to her feet. The applause was immediate and thunderous. People stood around me, creating a spontaneous standing ovation. Through the crowd, I could see my parents' shocked expressions, my father's mouth literally hanging open. Jackson sat rigid in his chair, his face a mask of disbelief. The president gestured for quiet. Miss Harris is not just any government official. At 34, she is the youngest person ever to serve as National Security Advisor and only the third woman to hold this critical position. She advises the president on all matters related to national and international security, counterterrorism, and crisis management. We are deeply honored that she has joined us today. As the president spoke, Marcus received a communication through his earpiece. He signaled to the other agents, who smoothly repositioned themselves. Their movements drew attention to their earpieces, dark glasses, and the subtle but unmistakable bulges of their service weapons. Most tellingly, the presidential seal became visible on their identification badges as they adjusted their stances. A collective gasp went through the audience as people realized these weren't just private security guards, but actual Secret Service agents. Phones came out everywhere, people recording the unexpected moment. On stage, Jackson's face had drained of color. As cameras turned toward him, the graduate connected to this VIP, he fumbled the diploma cover he'd been holding, dropping it onto the stage with an audible clatter that echoed through the speakers. The university president, sensing a unique opportunity, continued, "Miss Harris, would you do us the honor of saying a few words to our graduates? Your journey from small-town Connecticut to the White House offers an inspiring message about where education can lead." This definitely hadn't been planned. I could see the ceremony coordinator looking panicked, rifling through papers. But the crowd was already applauding again, urging me forward. Marcus leaned close. "Venue is secure. If you wish to speak, we'll escort you to the stage." I nodded, making a split-second decision. This wasn't about overshadowing Jackson or getting revenge on my family. It was about seizing a chance to share something meaningful with these graduates, and perhaps to finally be seen on my own terms. As I walked toward the stage escorted by Marcus, a path cleared before us. The weight of hundreds of stairs felt both intimidating and exhilarating. I caught sight of my mother's face, a complex mixture of shock, embarrassment, and something that might have been pride if it wasn't so tangled with resentment. When I reached the podium, the president shook my hand warmly. "Thank you for this unexpected honor," she whispered. Looking out over the sea of faces, graduates in their caps and gowns, families clutching programs and flowers, I took a deep breath. "Thank you for that generous introduction." I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I hadn't planned to speak today, as this celebration rightfully belongs to the graduates and their achievements. I paused, finding Jackson in the crowd. His expression was unreadable. "Education has been the foundation of my journey," I continued. "Not just formal education, though, that opened many doors, but also the education that comes from challenge, from perseverance, and sometimes from disappointment." The audience was utterly silent, hanging on each word. To today's graduates, I offer this. Your diploma is not just a certification of academic achievement. It's proof that you can set a goal and reach it despite obstacles. In the years ahead, you'll face many challenges, personal and professional. The resilience you've developed during your time here will serve you well. I look directly at Jackson now. Success isn't measured by how quickly you reach your destination, but by whether you stay true to yourself along the way. Some paths are direct, others take unexpected turns. What matters is continuing to move forward with integrity and purpose. I could see my words landing with him, his expression softening slightly. Finally, I said, "Remember that your worth isn't determined by others' recognition. It comes from within, from knowing who you are and standing firmly in that knowledge." I smiled at the graduates. Congratulations to all of you. Your communities, your country, and your world need the unique contributions only you can make. Thank you. The applause as I left the stage was deafening. As Marcus escorted me back to my seat, I noticed Diana standing at the entrance to the amphitheater, her face beaming with pride. She gave me a discreet thumbs up, and I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The ceremony resumed, but the atmosphere had transformed. When Jackson's name was called, the applause seemed especially enthusiastic. Now he wasn't just any graduate, but the brother of someone notable. I clapped sincerely, genuinely happy for his achievement. After the ceremony ended, the amphitheater erupted into chaos as families sought out their graduates. Marcus kept close, creating a buffer zone around me as people approached seeking handshakes, photos, or just to say hello. I accommodated as many as security would allow, especially the excited young women who whispered that they found my career inspiring. Through the crowd, I could see my family standing awkwardly together, watching the impromptu receiving line that had formed around me. My father kept straightening his tie nervously. My mother clutched her purse, looking unsure whether to approach. Stephanie, ever image-conscious, was already edging toward me, clearly eager for a social media-worthy photo. "Alondra," she called, pushing forward. "We should get a picture together for Instagram." Before I could respond, Diana appeared at my side, linking her arm through mine. "I'm so proud of you," she said loud enough for Stephanie to hear. "That speech was perfect." Stephanie faltered clearly, trying to place this newcomer in the family hierarchy. "Diana, thank you for coming," I said, warmly introducing her to Marcus and the other agents, who clearly already knew who she was from security briefings. My parents finally approached my father, leading the way with an entirely new demeanor, chest puffed out, hand extended like a politician working a room. "Alondra, honey, what a wonderful surprise. You should have told us you were speaking today. We would have arranged better seats for you." "It wasn't planned, Dad," I replied evenly. "So many people asking about you," my mother chimed in, her voice unnaturally bright. "The Petersons want to know if you'll come to their barbecue tomorrow, and Mrs. Hannigan from church is hoping you might sign her program." I noticed she was now wearing a Mother of the Graduate corsage that had been conspicuously absent during the ceremony. "We should take family photos," my father suggested. "The whole family together. Jackson, come over here with your sister." Jackson approached slowly, his expression complex. As cameras appeared from all sides, official university photographers, local press alerted to my presence, relatives with smartphones, he finally met my eyes directly. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Somewhere private." Marcus, ever vigilant, responded before I could. "We can secure a room inside the administration building if that would be acceptable." My brother looked startled to be addressed by my security detail, but nodded. As we prepared to move inside, my parents started to follow. "Just Jackson," I said firmly. "We need a moment alone." For once, they didn't argue. The university had provided a small conference room in the administration building. Marcus checked it thoroughly before allowing us to enter, then positioned himself outside the door. Jackson and I sat across from each other at the polished table, the silence between us, heavy with decades of unspoken feelings. "That was quite a moment out there," he finally said, picking at the tassel on his graduation cap. "It wasn't planned," I replied quietly. "I would never intentionally take focus from your graduation." He looked up, studying my face. "Wouldn't you, though? After all those years of being ignored, I wouldn't blame you if you did." His unexpected candor caught me off guard. No, Jackson, that's not who I am. No, he agreed slowly. It's not. That's always been the difference between us. You never needed to tear others down to feel important. I waited, sensing he had more to say. I was jealous of you, he admitted, the words seemingly difficult to push out. Ever since we were kids, you were so smart, so driven. Everything came easily to you. Nothing came easily, I corrected gently. I just worked when no one was watching. He nodded. I know that now. Back then it was easier to believe you were just naturally perfect. It gave me an excuse for not measuring up. Is that why you wanted me sitting in the back today? Because you're still jealous? Jackson ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly younger and vulnerable. Partly, but mostly I was embarrassed. Here I am 28, and just getting my bachelor's degree while my sister advises the president. Having you in the front row felt like it would just highlight how much I've underachieved. The honesty of his answer touched me. Jackson, different paths aren't better or worse. They're just different. Easy for you to say from where you're sitting, he said, but without malice. But I get your point. I leaned forward. Do Mom and Dad know you feel this way? He laughed humorlessly. Are you kidding? They've been projecting their dreams onto me since I was born. Dad wanted to be a famous athlete and politician. When neither happened for him, I became Plan B. The pressure has been suffocating. For the first time, I saw our childhood from his perspective. The golden child status, as both gift and burden. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. I always thought you had it easy. And I thought the same about you, he replied. Grass is always greener, I guess. We sat in silence for a moment, decades of misunderstanding, slowly dissolving between us. So, what happens now? Jackson finally asked. That depends, I said. What do you want to happen? He considered this. I'd like to know my sister. The real you, not the version I created in my head, or the image Mom and Dad projected. I felt tears welling up, but blinked them back. I'd like that too. And maybe someday, he added hesitantly, I could visit you in Washington, see what your life is like there. I'd love that, I said, smiling genuinely. The guest room has a great view of the National Mall. When we emerged from the conference room, our parents were waiting anxiously, Stephanie hovering beside them, checking her social media feeds. Diana stood slightly apart, giving me space, but present if needed. Alondra, my mother began immediately. The university president has invited us all to a special reception. She specifically asked for you to attend. I've already made plans, I said firmly. Diana and I are having dinner together to celebrate Jackson's achievement. But surely you can change those plans, my father insisted. This is a great networking opportunity for Jackson. Jackson surprised me by speaking up. Actually, Dad, I think I'll pass too. Stephanie and I promised her parents we'd meet them for dinner. My parents looked between us, clearly sensing a shift in dynamics they didn't understand. Well, at least come to Sunday brunch tomorrow before you leave, my mother pressed. We hardly ever have the family together. I exchanged a glance with Jackson, seeing my own complex feelings reflected in his eyes. I'll think about it, I said, not committing. Right now, I need some time. As Marcus escorted Diana and me through the crowd toward the exit, my father called after me. Alondra, will you be at the house later tonight? The neighbors want to stop by and say hello. I kept walking, Diana's arm linked supportively through mine. You okay? She asked quietly. Getting there, I replied. That evening, Diana and I sat on the patio of a local restaurant, sharing a bottle of wine and years of friendship. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, a beautiful backdrop to a day of emotional revelations. So Diana said, refilling our glasses. What now? I considered the question. Now I stop waiting for approval I might never get. I acknowledge the hurt without letting it define me. And maybe with time, Jackson and I build something new. And your parents? That's more complicated, I admitted. There's too much history, too many ingrained patterns, but I can establish boundaries while still leaving the door open for change. 3 months later, Jackson came to visit me in Washington. We spent a weekend exploring museums, eating at my favorite restaurants, and talking, really talking, for perhaps the first time in our lives. He shared his struggles with feeling inadequate, his desire to find his own path rather than following our father's blueprint. I told him about the loneliness of leadership, the weight of decisions that affected national security. I'm sorry, he said one evening, as we sat on my balcony overlooking the city lights, for all those years of not seeing you. We were kids, I replied, both trying to navigate a complicated family dynamic. Still, he insisted, I could have been a better brother. And I could have been a better sister, I acknowledged. But that's the past. We get to choose what happens next. My relationship with my parents evolved more slowly. There were still uncomfortable moments, still times when old patterns emerged. But there was also tentative progress. Phone calls that went beyond superficial updates, occasional visits where genuine connection happened between the strained silences. The most profound change, however, was within myself. I no longer measured my worth by their recognition. I no longer hoped for the validation I had sought as a child. Instead, I embraced the family I had built, friends like Diana, colleagues who respected me, and yes, even Marcus, and my security team, who had become an unexpected but valued presence in my life. The little girl who once sat alone at a national competition, searching the audience for parents who never came, had grown into a woman surrounded by people who truly saw her. And that, I discovered, was the most important victory of all. Life doesn't always give us the family we want, but it offers endless opportunities to create the connections we need. Sometimes, healing comes not from changing others, but from changing our expectations, from realizing that our value never depended on external validation in the first place. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Or found yourself creating a chosen family of friends and supporters? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember that your worth is inherent regardless of who recognizes it. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Your support means more than you know.